Hey everybody, this is a preview of the new entity builder in the upcoming release 0.7, which is coming in November. I know some of you are not going to use the entity builder to build your applications, but since most of you are, I built it with a ton of new features in terms of low code, no code, and custom code. So let's take a look at the new feature called templates. I have plans to support Airtable and Notion to import your existing bases and databases, but this is upcoming. I mean, this is under construction. So what is working is the manual upload a JSON configuration. I have two sets of entities. For example, the CRM entities contains company, contact, opportunity, and relationships between each other. For example, company owns contacts and company owns opportunities as well. So if I preview these three entities, I will have their properties, their relationships, and for example, for the opportunity entity, I have 4 custom status and 2 custom views. So let's create them all. And here, if we go to the application side, we won't have these 3 entities because they are admin right here. But for example, we can change companies to be app or all. So this is working now on the tenant side. Let's do that for contacts and opportunities as well. So by default, I create them with the admin type to build your features. And whenever they're ready, you can toggle to application as well. So let's take a look at these new properties for each of the entities. Companies has name, address, phone, source, and logo. Contacts has name, email, job title, status, and marketing subscriber. And opportunities have name, value, and an expected close date. So if we click on companies, we can see the details, the properties, the relationships, and this new page, which is called no code, where it will give you all the no code routes and blocks that are already generated for you. That are no code, but also in a way that you can customize it fully. For example, let's take a look at list, which is the default when you go to the application like this. And it will show all your companies. So if we click on new, it will redirect to the new form, which is this one. So let's create Acme Corp 1 and address 1. And let's say this is from email, and let's create a contact related to this company, contact 1 and contact company. This is a programmer and it's a contact. So I can create multiple contacts while creating my company. And we can select which one of these entities we want to relate to the company that we are creating. And we can create opportunities as well. So let's save this company and it will say created. This is the one that was created. You can add another, or you can create your company and click on the company to be redirected to the overview no code route. This is this one right here, which has details, tasks, comments, and tags, and a workflow state if needed. For example, we have the details right here, the tags. Let's tag this like this. Tag 1, which is color green. And let's create a task. Task 1, task 2. And we can comment this, and this user, which is me, will be notified. So we can also share this row here, which is basically the permissions visibility. This can be only for me, everyone on the account, specific roles, specific users, or a public URL. For example, let's share this and go to that route, which is public, companies, and the ID. And this, if I open it with an incognito tab, it will show like this. But if we go back and change this back to private, this will say unauthorized. So this is the overview no-code route. The edit form is basically the same as the new form, but for edit. Let's upload a logo and address number 2, and this is from social. And let's save this company. And now let's see what happens when we export these rows, which is going to be these 2. Oh, by the way, this can be exported here as well. So this will give you a comma separated values format. This is the image, which is saved on Supabase, and these are the 2 rows. And we can filter here. For example, let's filter the number 2, and this will export that row only, and we can save this view to be custom for us. And now let's try to import our rows, and it will ask for the delimiter, which is comma or pipe, semicolon, or tab, and if whether the headers are in the first row or it has no headers. So this file has headers because it's the one I exported. So we will select first row has headers and upload this here, and it will show every column. For example, column 1 is the ID. We're not going to map this, the folio and the date, but we want to map the name of the company and the address and the phone and the source, and finally the logo. So if we select one primary, for example, phone, which is empty, it will say confirm one row because it will not create duplicates for this one. So it will add only the first one, but we can add every row on the imported values. So it will import 2 records with these values. And finally, the no-code blocks, which I call, is an overview of all your entities that redirect to this route. For example, contacts here, we can see our contacts and export them as well, and opportunities here. And I forgot to show this all-in-one route. Let's go to the contacts, click all-in-one, and here it will stay on the same route, but this will have CRUD capabilities, like this contact is number 3, and this is a marketing subscriber, and we can create the company here as well, all while staying on the same route. This is possible because of remix routing system and use fetcher capabilities, which is awesome. And finally, a set of small blocks which are not CRUD, like summary of entity rows, which you can use this to put this on the dashboard, for example, like here. And or if you are going to use companies, contacts, and opportunities on the admin side, you can copy the code of this route, which has filters as well, and implement it on your admin side here or before here. And miscellaneous lists like tasks and workflows or workflow states. I remember I created 2 tasks, I think, and this is the row, and this is my task. So this is obviously under construction. There should be here more blocks like a summary of opportunity values or a summary of all my requests pending in a certain workflow state. But this is a starting point for you to customize. So talking about customization, I have this custom entity sample, which has one dynamic property, which is auto-generated by the UI, and 4 not dynamic entities, properties. I mean 5, meaning each one of these are database properties. So for this entity, a sample custom entity, I have previously created this model on Prisma that contains the row ID reference, the custom text, a custom number, custom date, custom boolean, and custom select properties. And on the row, I have this reference or relationship, and I obviously need to call, include on the rows query here on row with details. I need to add this sample custom entity in case a row has a sample custom entity, and in the include object I need to set this to true, sample custom entity to true. This name should be the same as the name of the entity, not the slug, not the title, the name. So let's create this and click on the no-code routes for that and click on new. And here we have dynamic text, custom number, and custom date, and custom boolean. I have already created the UI for each one of these, but let me show you what happens when you create a property that is not dynamic from scratch. For example, database text 2. And here we say it's not a dynamic field. So back to the no-code new route, we will have this error that says sample custom entity database text 2 field needs to be customized at this file. So here, row custom properties allow you to customize fully each row property if you want to. It iterates on the entity properties, and it renders this component where you can catch the entity and the property name and render that specific UI component. For example, this input text is for the custom text, one for the custom number, one for the custom date, for the boolean, for the select, and we're missing for the database text number 2. So we can copy and paste this and override this database text 2 field. And this should be of type input text. Database text 2 doesn't exist. So let me stop the application, go to my Prisma model, and add this database text 2 property, and let's run Prisma db push just to force the update. Right now I don't want to make a migration, and let's run the application again and verify that this UI is updated. I forgot to save this file. So here I don't pass the property, I pass the name, title, read-only, and required, and the value, which come from the row, and its sample custom entity and the property value. So let's try this again. Okay, so here we have the field. So now we can create dynamic properties, but also custom properties. And of course, you can build your entities with fully customized database models, and you will customize the UI for each field as much as you want, while keeping the capabilities of the entity builder out-of-the-box features like tags, tasks, row permissions, and comments, and custom views. And of course, the subscription limit check. Let's try that. First, we need to set this property to type app to show this on the application here. And it doesn't have an icon, but it doesn't matter right now. So we can create as this tenant a new row, but if we add this entity to one of the pricing plans here on settings, pricing plans, and let's go to the basic one and add 2 sample entities, which is a monthly limit of 2 rows. I mean, the name is sample custom entity. This should be exactly as the entity name. This one. And if we save this pricing plan, when we go back as the tenant and try to create one sample custom entity, I think it will let us, because I'm already subscribed to the basic one. So let's remove that from the basic one and say not included, and add it to the starter plan here. This is a monthly limit, 2 sample entities. So let's refresh here, and it will say now that this entity is not included in the current plan. So we will need to either upgrade or cancel first on this plan and go to the starter plan and subscribe to get 2 sample entities. Now let's try to create one again, and it will let me create only 2. So let's do it. And let's create another. And if we try to create another, it will say you've reached the limit this month. So that's the benefit of the entity builder or the entity rows, but you can customize it fully. Technically speaking, this is how it looks, the auto-generated routes. Here we have a folder called entity, which contains the entity slug, and this is just an alias. So I can know this is for auto-generated routes. This is the list. This is the new route, the overview route, the edit route, the all-in-one route plus use fetcher. Like here I have a site modal, a slide over modal that show the new form, which is called with the use fetcher, calling this URL and the URL is generated based on the current entity, and here we can see how it gets or maps the routes. For the list, it will replace the entity value for the slug, and for those who require an item, it will replace the ID. And these routes allow me to have this all-in-one type of routes, so I don't have to keep, for example, the create new row functionality on this route action. Actually, here I don't even have an action, but since I'm passing the correct route, which is this one, it will call that with the use feature and check all the permissions like this. It will check the tenant ID, the entity, the current request, the current action, verify that the user has create permission for this entity, and if all this passes, it will create the entity and it will return this data to the fetcher here with set data whenever the fetcher data changes. And here I render the row form, which also checks if the current subscription allows for it. So this is this is on the admin side, but I have an exact copy of these routes, auto-generated routes, on the tenant side, right here. So all entities work both on the tenant side and on the admin side. But of course, there will be entities that only work on the application side and entities that will only work on the admin side, or both that are shared on the management side and on the customer portal or app side. Also, I centralized all the rows here, so you can have a quick overview of who is creating what entities, and you can filter here. For example, filter all this account, or filter a custom entity like contacts. And here you can see the logs. And what I'm going to do next is do the same that I did here, but for the API, because these routes use a standardized way of managing entities and rows. So the API should call the same exact API method that this one right here is calling. The only difference is that on the API you can pass an access token, which is admin, that bypasses all the tenant permission checks. But if you're a tenant and you are using an API key, it will check if you have access to that entity in terms of CRUD permissions or usage based on the API usage limits on the pricing plans. And finally, another difference between the auto-generated forms or routes and the API is that the API receives data from a JSON format, while the forms in a forum format from data format. So I built all of these 3 entities for the CRM, which I will need here, where we can have our contacts, companies, opportunities, and a little dashboard here with the opportunities, with the open or active opportunities value here, and have an email feature to select a custom filter of contacts and verify that the contact is a marketing subscriber, so we can send them emails like welcome to the newsletter list, or here's a coupon for you to use on this pricing plan, and maybe even track if whether the email was opened or a link was clicked or a subscriber was unsubscribed, and maybe even connect the contact form here to create contacts and contact submissions, which maybe there should be a submission entity that is a child of contacts. So this is it for this preview. There's a lot of documentation to write regarding these new features, but I don't think I will have the time, so maybe you should learn while doing, like I am, and hope that I managed to finish the CRM plus emailing, marketing email features for November 1st, which is when I will be posting this update.